home, man. First time caller. Welcome. Feel at home and welcome on in, man. Take it away.
Yes, sir. No, I appreciate it, call, man. Hey, just want to say you do a great job. Just kind of fell around the channel, obviously, with all the news and all the transition that's going on in college football, but specifically at Washington and Alabama. Um, the coverage you guys are giving is off top of notch. So super cool to be on this and talk with you guys. You guys got a good dude, and if you get some of the coaches on his staff, I think it's definitely a good home run hire for sure. Kalen DeBoer in his 2 years in Seattle helped put Washington football back on the map nationally.
Mm.
I do disagree with the last caller. Just real quick on a side note, we didn't throw a parade going 10-2 or 14-1.
Yeah.
But I definitely understand from the East Coast perception, that's how you guys might feel. We also have very high expectations on this side of the Mississippi. But a couple concerns I have for you guys is make sure you guys are thinking about and are aware of. And I'm sure you guys have probably already talked about some of these, but so if I'm sounding like a broken record, please don't mind it. Number one is just his short tenure at some of his stops.
Yeah.
The guy definitely wins with other coaches' talent,
Mm.
and him and his staff are able to maximize that talent. A couple things to kind of keep a note when he came to the University of Washington. If you look at his recruiting, kind of who he has been able to recruit, he lives and dies in the transfer portal, at least at Washington and Fresno State,
Wow.
which again is a good method. But again, just to kind of keep in mind, he won with other guys, guys, if that makes sense. Chris Peterson, old legendary coach up here in Washington. Jimmy Lake, guy got fired. But these are all guys who literally recruited a lot of that talent, and they were lower 3-star, 4-star recruits. So again, he's able to maximize on that. So that's just one thing I'll be really keeping my eye on is with Courtney Morgan. He's an OG. You guys probably know you've done your research around
Yeah.
him. How they're able to maximize recruiting and keeping kids in the Southeast. I think the last caller did make a good point with Sark at Texas. I mean, golly, they have all the resources there too as well. I think Georgia's getting the resources, Ole Miss. So, you're pulling up the schedule. Hopefully you guys looked at our schedule and saw how many games we barely won. And again, I think Kalen DeBoer, I think highly of him. I think I'm worried for him because, yes, some of those games we should have lost. And if you guys ever have a chance, look at the Arizona State game.
Yeah, I did. I
Look
watched
at
that
the
game.
Stanford game, literally a play away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bro, I'm talking about my heart. I mean, I'm thankful now. I mean, this has been the toughest week in Seattle sports. Going from a national championship game, high of highs, to Pete Carroll being let go, to then Kalen DeBoer a day later going out to Alabama. So it's been wild, but man, I think you guys got a good one. Ryan Grubb is also amazing. You guys are gonna love his play calling. He's very aggressive, and they definitely love to throw that thing around. And I think a good mix. I mean, what they're able to do with like a Dylan Johnson. You guys probably remember his name at Mississippi State. I mean, he turned into a all Pac-12 player when people thought he was soft. Blah blah blah. So yeah, if you guys are able to pull that off, killer. And then the last guy I think is the underrated, probably guy maybe people aren't talking about now, but you guys will hear come season time is Jamarcus Shepard. That dude is a dog. I don't know if you guys heard, he don't call wide receivers. He calls them the takers. And this the way he's able to build relationships with that room is top notch. And I think that missing piece from the last few years I've seen at Alabama is having those real dogs in that wide receiver room. And with him leading the way, ooh-wee. But lastly, my only concern is how long is he going to be there? And that would just be my biggest thing if it's not just being ran out. But I do think he has NFL aspirations. So if one day the Cowboys call or whoever, I mean, again, just I hate to see you guys in a worse spot than everybody else has been left after Kalen DeBoer. So just kind of things that kind of keep your guys aware of. This isn't something new that he just started doing. If you look at his resume, I mean, history repeats itself. So I just don't want y'all to get super hyped up on this guy. and then all of a sudden 2 years down the road, you're like, Jeff from Seattle, come back, join the show. Man, we want a pity party here, but I hope he's there for a long time. He's replacing the GOAT, greatest of all time. That's tough, challenging. And, yes, to everybody's point, you guys have all the best players in the country. You guys got to get a good defensive coordinator. I would be concerned if Chuck Morrell or William Inge from the Huskies come there. I would say keep someone from Bama, get a new DC. But yeah, defense has been kind of soft out here for the last 2 years. So
yeah,
I know you guys have the players and the talent to make a difference. But anyways, I appreciate you, Kyle. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, hold on, Jeff, man. I got a couple questions for you before you bounce out. So
Yes,
Kalen DeBoer mentioned that re-recruiting the players is kind of the first priority. Courtney Morgan served as the GM. From what I heard, he has a large personality. People gravitate towards him. He's someone that vibes with the players. The players can instantly like and trust. And I love that they added that spot GM. I think that was that's a chess move by Washington. Can you tell me a little bit more about or like any type of detail about Courtney Morgan?
Oh, yeah. No, Courtney. When I say Courtney Morgan, to me, he and again, I think the last caller, Mike, talked about, people of color on DeBoer staff. You'll probably see not many people of color on his staff, and that's just, it is what it is. But Courtney Morgan is that guy who's going to be able to go into the inner city, go into the South, go up north, go anywhere, go into someone's living room and build those connections. That boy is on his phone 24/7. Follow him on Twitter and just look what he's liking. Look what he's replying to. The guy gets it. He understands. Like he helped dub we had a little recruiting thing. It's the Mont Lake Motion. And if anybody who's kind of hip to hip hop, that culture, we always just say it's the motion up here. And, he really just helped get kids to really buy into that and just help that relationship piece. And then not to mention, you saw what he's been able to do at Michigan, help get that roster with low recruits, right? And same thing up here in Seattle. But that he reminds me, and this probably sounds terrible, but like a basketball bagman back in the day. He's just that guy who's just the salesman on the program. And when I say he is the salesman, he runs it. He does he helps get kids on, official visits, unofficial visits. He's basically in their parents. He's just the guy. So you'll see a lot of him. And I will say any successes with any kids staying and like being with the program, I would just tell you it's probably because of Courtney Morgan and his ability to relate to the kids.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, I know you had some really good things to say about Grubbs. You talked about Jamarcus Shepard, so maybe those would kind of be my next questions that I have. I kind of have. This is turned into an interview, by the way. So have a couple calls so get comfy. And if you're in the call queue, I'll get to you guys. You guys just hang tight. All right, I'm not going anywhere. I wanted to ask you about players in the portal that have hit from Washington. Any of those guys that you're really high on and that could be potential targets to follow Kalen DeBoer, and if you could mention some of those guys for us.
Yeah, no, I think there's a ton, right? We have a running joke in some of our group chats is we might not be even to field a roster come September.
Sheesh.
So it's been really bad. But a few guys who recruits just naturally, high school recruits. I think there's a few out there who definitely decommitted. On Monday we had day of the national championship, the number one player in the state of Washington, linebacker, commit to the Dogs, and literally Wednesday decommit. So Noah Carter, kid from Arizona, he's a linebacker, edge rusher.
Okay.
I definitely could see him following. But as far as like current players on the roster, what you saw a lot is a lot of guys who had the opportunity to come back. They decided to go into the NFL draft. So there's a couple defensive players who put their name in the portal recently. A guy named Asa Turner. He's a guy from, I believe, like Carlsbad, California. He's
Yeah.
a West Coast guy, but could be a guy that follows. I know he was a really big. He loved Kalen DeBoer, and he really kind of helped his career go. The other guy is a cornerback, DB, Jabbar Muhammad.
Yep.
That he was I think, first team All Pac-12. He's nice. He's locked down. We call him Bar Island out here. But I just don't know what your guys' needs are there. But I definitely do think you'll. Will Rogers, did I hear that right?
Yeah,
You guys picked him up?
yeah. Will Rogers hit the portal a couple days ago. Look, the quarterback room is full here. I don't know. That would be crazy.
Billy.
I mean, you have Milroe coming back. You have Ty Simpson, Lonergan. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe he's waiting to see who the next hire will be at Washington. I don't know.
Yeah, it was really odd. I definitely do feel like he's a Ryan Grubb, Kalen DeBoer guy, though. So I would just kind of think about that a little bit.
For sure. Yep.
I don't know what eligibility Milroe has. It would be silly to potentially move him to another position or red shirt or something like that. But I wouldn't be surprised. I hate to say like Will Rogers, because I think a caller earlier was talking about Milroe can run. Michael Penix can run. You just got to remember, he not obviously to Milroe's level, but they want their quarterback not to get hurt. And Michael Penix, 4 seasons of injury, so that's why you didn't see them utilize him in the run game.
Uh-huh.
I think adding Will Rogers or Milroe in that offense is going to be a little different than what maybe the tape will show at Washington, to have that other element, right, or the other layer there. So that should be really exciting to kind of see. I don't know how you guys need on tight ends, but I forget the gentleman's name, but he was at Fresno State. So actually ties to Fresno State. He was a tight end who transferred to Washington, who also just recently went back into the transfer portal. So, and he's a guy we were looking high on, but yeah, half our team went into the NFL draft. So we are not looking good. But yeah, so the one thing I will say is the board does a really good job of getting people to get quick buy-in, energy, effort, and attitude. That's his big thing. And the guy, again, from a guy who knows how to help build a culture, man. I mean, there's already one there. Obviously, you guys have done it under Saban for forever, but he's someone who I think can kind of attempt to elevate it, and I think you got a winner for sure. We definitely miss him out here. We call him some other names. We won't go into details on that right now, but I wish him well, man. That he brought a lot of happy moments, and excited that he's going to the big leagues. And there's nowhere at the top than you guys. So I wish him the best, and
all right,
your program the best too as well.
Lastly, I wanted to ask you about this before you go on with Jeff from Seattle. Seems obviously very dialed into Washington. We appreciate you calling from across the country. I love Seattle personally. I love to hit up, the fish market down there. I mean, just the whole experience.
Yeah,
it's
Pike's Place.
Pike's Place. And I remember going out there when I was young with my mom, when she took me down to Pike's Place, and you see him throwing the salmon, right? I saw that. I was like right there, and then kind of cruising through and all the good food up there, and just I can mess with Seattle. It's a good city, for sure. The other thing I was going to ask about is like one of the biggest concerns that I have is about the defense, right? Because over here at Alabama, the number one thing about this program, like the BAMA standard is basically another way of saying like the BAMA defense. That has always kind of been the pinnacle, the focus point of this particular program. It's been the backbone of Saban. He don't mess around with the defense. Like he did for a little while with Pete Golding, and people like they got pissed off. Like they started pointing Pete Golding, he was a scapegoat for everything, but the defense just wasn't good. They were allowed, you look at the points that they allowed against LSU, Tennessee, they were allowing like 48 points, way up there. Under Kevin Steele, a former Saban disciple from the ecosystem, it went back to the Bama standard like that. Hard hitting, limited points within, the realism of today's pass-heavy offense, right? But the defense made incredible second-half adjustments. What was the issue at Washington? Was there just not like a focus on the defense? Yeah. Because when I see number 94 in defense, I just I don't I don't like that at all. And that's one of my biggest concerns. That will not fly. That will get you a ticket sent out. I'm not kidding you. There's not going to be like the pressure here. You start getting into shooting matches like 61 to 51. You're going to lose the fan base, and you're not going to be able to keep up in the SEC because you look at the Oklahomas of the world. You look at what Auburn was able to do with the misdirection. Hugh Freeze is crazy. You look at some of these other, Tennessee and the offensive minds there. Like the SEC is different. They're built different. And if you don't have a defense, you're going to be in trouble, and you're going to be packing your bags to another program.
Yeah, no, right there with you. I think, I'll just go with the first obvious one is just the talent level, right? I don't know if you know a little about the roster makeup on defensive side of the ball for the Dogs. Our number one linebacker, middle linebacker, was a walk-on when he first came on. So I would just say this talent level, right? Great players for Pac-12, great players for University of Washington. I think that got exposed big time in physical games, and I think IE national championship game, Michigan, just put it on those boys, right? And I think just a lot of we call them our kind of guys up here in this area. They're not going to be 5-star recruits. They're not going to be big time names. We just want people who are going to get the job done, make a play. But sometimes with that athleticism and stuff like that's good, but this lack physicality and this big bodies.
Yeah.
And I think, defensively, I think they have it's a very unique scheme. They're very highly reliant on very good edge rushers to kind of help get some pressure on the quarterback. I think ideally in our defense that we had the last 2 years, we lacked some depth at interior linemen that kind of helps, clog up some of those things. And then our linebackers, are nationally speaking, they probably would rank 94th out of, 133 teams. They're just not very great linebackers. And then you're really relying on, if they keep the same philosophy, they're going to rely on basically a nickel corner. We call it the Husky up here, probably call them the Tide down there or the Crimson, whatever, right? That position is going to be your best defensive player, and that's the one who can help play in coverage, but also is going to be able to come up on run support. But I would also say that was number 7, Dom Hampton on our team. He was our hardest hitter. He obviously played out of position a lot of different times because once he's a smaller free safety type guy, and against those big boys on the line, just struggle to kind of make plays and get to the ball. So.
Yeah, good insight. Yeah, good insight on that because one thing that you're going to have instantaneously, it sounds like you just kind of lack like Jimmy's and Joe's, and who knows what the X's and O's is going to be in terms of schematics. Because one thing that when you get here and you shake Caleb Downs' hand, you're like, my goodness, this is an NFL guy. When you get to meet Deontay Lawson, that's another NFL guy. When you get to meet Jahad Campbell, that's another NFL guy. When you get to meet the new transfer, LT Overton or Damani Jackson or Trey Amos, like listen to the names I'm talking about. Like these guys aren't walk-ons to be whatever. These guys aren't 3 stars. These guys aren't Pac-12 defensive players. Look, there's been some guys from the Pac-12 who have certainly been. When I think about defense in the Pac-12, you know what I think about? Really good corners because they're chasing wide receivers all over the field. They're chasing, like you said, Jeff, takers, right? So they're good they're good because they've gone against receivers from USC. They've gone against receivers from Washington, Oregon. All of those schools also have elite wide receivers. That's why you have elite DBs. I never really think of edge rushers from other than like the only team that I think about from the Pac-12 that has a defense that I'm really, and maybe I'm an SEC snob or whatever, but it's like Utah. Like Utah has a nasty,
spot on,
right?
Spot on.
Right? Like they have big dudes that are in the middle. And they took USC to the woodshed plenty of times. That they're a tough team to deal with. And they've been under Kyle Whittingham for some time. So I like that, and I think when you talk to me about kind of the transfer portal, exits, kind of the Muhammad kid, the defensive back, kind of makes my ears perk up a little bit because I think, I don't know, I mean, you come in here and you create competition along with Damani Jackson and some of these other guys. I don't know. I like that name. I know you got Trey Amos, but there's a lot of names that could be rotated in the secondary. Jeff, I really appreciate you calling in and providing great commentary about Washington.